In the 4th year of marriage, Jasper's first love returned to the country. Jasper went to pick her up at the airport himself. The two were extremely affectionate in front of the media. A journalist asked him, "What about Sue then?" Jasper looked straight into the camera, his tone as cold as ice. "It's a business marriage. There's no affection involved." However, later, it was also him who knelt in the pouring rain, begging me for forgiveness. I held an umbrella and looked at him, gentle and serious. "It's okay, Jasper. Anyway, I've never loved you." The person I loved had already been buried deep underground, sacrificing himself for the country. "President Jasper, do you have no feelings for Sue at all?" The media reporter pointed the camera at Jasper, asking the question without mercy. In front of the camera, Jasper's face was impeccably handsome. No wonder entertainment reporters were always so focused on him. In the 4 years of marriage, there had been 9 scandals about him that seemed so conclusive. Everyone knew that Jasper didn't love me, his wife arranged by his mother. But both in public and in private, he never once treated me with respect. 9 scandals. 9 denials. This was the 10th time. But this time was different from the previous 9. The woman this time wasn't a model or an internet celebrity who wanted to use Jasper to climb up the social ladder. It was Yasmin, the newly crowned movie queen. She was also Jasper's first love, the one he loved deeply. When she returned to the country, Jasper abandoned the ongoing meeting to pick her up at the airport. They were intimately affectionate without any scruples in front of the camera. He treated the marriage as if it were nothing and didn't even take me seriously. Facing the reporter's question, he held the woman's hand and said softly with his thin lips, "No." He said, "I have a business marriage with Sue. There's no affection. The person I love has never changed." With just one sentence, he confirmed that my marriage to him existed in name only and also indirectly confessed his love to Yasmin. Yasmin blushed shyly but got even closer to Jasper. The camera was focused on the two of them. I was curled up on the sofa watching this scene, with a calm expression, as if the man in front of the camera wasn't my husband but a complete stranger. At this moment, there was a noise at the door. I turned my head to look and saw that it was Jasper. His eyes fell on the TV and then moved to me, without a single word of explanation. I reminded him, "There's some hangover soup on the table." But he didn't drink it. When he got closer, I realized that his face was flushed and he was very drunk. He threw himself onto the sofa, muttering to himself, "Yasmin, you're back. I'm really happy." My hand trembled. Looking down at the man on the sofa, I asked softly, "Jasper, in the 4 years of our marriage, have you ever had any feelings for me?" He propped himself up, his eyes on me, scattered and sarcastic, "Never." I wasn't surprised by his answer. The person he loved had always been Yasmin from the beginning to the end. The two were childhood sweethearts and a perfect match. They should have been together for life. However, due to the investment failure of Yasmin's family, they went bankrupt overnight. Jasper's mother, under the pretext of providing financial support, broke them up. Yasmin went abroad to study. Jasper had even tried to win her back and even went on a hunger strike for a week to protest, but in the end, he failed. As for my marriage to him, it originated from a blind date. There was a huge difference in strength between the Sue family and the Jasper family. Jasper chose me, but he had no feelings for me at all. He just wanted to use me to anger his father and mother. I knew that. Everyone knew that. But 4 years had passed. Jasper gradually got rid of his youthful recklessness, inherited the Jasper family group, and became more and more stable in his actions. There hadn't been any scandals about him for a long time. He went to work on time and got off work on time. We occasionally celebrated our anniversaries. His attitude towards me became softer day by day. I thought that everything was going on the right track. But then, Yasmin came back. Only then did I realize that the past was just a foolish dream. The warm yellow light shone on the man's face, softening his sharp facial features. I sighed gently, my fingertips tracing his outline, my tone wistful yet gentle. "Jasper, fortunately you don't love me." Otherwise, I would feel guilty. You've protected me for 4 years. But I've never loved you. The next morning, the news about Jasper and Yasmin spread all over the internet. Everyone was talking about it. But soon, all the posts on Weibo were deleted. It was Jasper's mother who gave the order to the public relations team herself. In the Jasper family mansion, Jasper's mother was wearing a light-colored cheongsam. The faint aroma of Dahongpo tea was in the air. She picked up the cup and took a sip before saying, "Sue, Jasper was being foolish, but you're smart. I've taken care of this matter for you. Don't let something like this happen again. Don't affect the reputation of the Jasper family." There was a hint of dissatisfaction in her tone. I meekly lowered my head, hiding the look in my eyes. "I'm sorry, Mother. Don't eat dinner today. Go home." With that order, she got up and left the living room. Fasting for mistakes was a form of punishment in the Jasper family. In the first few years of the new marriage, whenever Jasper caused trouble outside, Jasper's mother didn't want to be too harsh on him, so she could only punish me instead. I was already used to it. When I left the Jasper family mansion, the driver was already waiting at the door. But at this moment, suddenly a group of people rushed out from the side. The leader stopped me. "Are you Sue? Jasper's wife?" Before the words were even finished, the whole group surrounded me and started shouting, "You should get out of this relationship quickly. Don't delay the true love between my goddess and Jasper. Yes, get a divorce quickly. Don't you think you're being vicious? Jasper doesn't love you at all. Your marriage to him is meaningless. You might as well get a divorce. Get a divorce. Don't be the third party in a relationship." The group of people approached me with hideous expressions. The driver rushed in at this time and escorted me into the car. I sat in the car, my heart pounding violently. I was in a daze for a while. "Madam, those people are catching up. They're going to cut off our car." Before the driver could finish speaking, the group of people caught up. 3 cars surrounded us, shouting, "Sue, get out of the car." I could only call Jasper. 3 cars surrounded us, shouting, "Sue, get out of the car." I could only call Jasper. The moment the call was connected, I quickly said, "Jasper, I'm being chased by many cars. Come and save me." Jasper was stunned and immediately panicked. "What? Where?" "On Chensi Avenue. Come quickly." But before I could finish speaking, Yasmin's sharp voice came from the other end. "Today is my birthday, Sue. You've occupied Jasper for 4 years. I just want him to be with me for one day. Are you going to make up such a lie to trick him away?" With that, she actually started crying pitifully. I quickly explained, "I'm really not lying, Jasper. I really, save me." But Jasper's reply came again, his tone a bit cold. "Sue, don't make a fuss. I'll go back to be with you earlier tonight." Beep, the call was hung up. I was stunned for a moment and looked out of the window, just in time to meet the sarcastic gazes of those people. They said, "Sue, no one will save you." Yes. No one has ever saved me. A shrill sound of brakes accompanied by a crashing sound rang out. In the last second of consciousness, I suddenly thought that maybe they were right. I should get a divorce. When I woke up again, it was 3 days later. After the violent collision, I didn't die. I just had 3 broken ribs. The first person I saw when I opened my eyes was my mother. She was talking to the doctor. When she saw me wake up, she quickly poured me some water. In the sunlight, her brows were full of tenderness. I just felt a sharp pain in my heart. I held her hand and said, "Mom, I want to get a divorce. The person he loves has come back. He wants to be with her." My mother was stunned for a moment and then chuckled. "Sue, haven't you been doing fine all these years? What is Yasmin?" Jasper's mother won't let her marry into the family. No one can shake your position, not even Jasper. I shook my head. But they are the ones who truly love each other. My mother's eyes turned cold. "Sue, this isn't your marriage. It's a marriage alliance between the Sue family and the Jasper family. Be sensible." I was stunned, "Mom," but in an instant, my mother regained her tenderness, but her words were colder than ice. "Sue, maintain this marriage with Jasper properly. Don't forget that Charlie is still in the hospital. If you divorce Jasper, I won't treat him anymore. Charlie. Those two words hit my heart like a hammer. I suddenly woke up. In the Sue family, I was never the beloved daughter. I was a pawn for seeking benefits. A pawn can't rebel. I withdrew my hand and meekly placed it on both sides, forcing a smile. Mom, I'll make up with Jasper. Please ask Father to treat Charlie. That's my good girl. My mother stroked my face with satisfaction. Her palm was warm, but I could no longer feel any warmth. Only coldness. When I was discharged from the hospital after recovering, Jasper came to pick me up. He looked at my bandaged arm, his eyes a bit evasive. I misunderstood you about the last incident. With that, his face darkened slightly, as if he was a bit displeased. I looked at him, with a faint smile. It's okay. He was stunned, as if he hadn't expected me to be so calm. I took the handbag from his hand, smiling slightly. It's okay, Jasper. These pains are nothing. I can bear them, but after I said that, his face looked even worse. However, when he helped me into the car, his hand was still gentle. Inside the car, it was dim, and neither of us spoke. He had always been taciturn. Usually, I was the one who started the conversation. But today, I was really tired. Leaning on the back seat, suddenly his deep voice rang in my ears. Sue, you must be safe. He turned his head to look at me, as if he smiled, his eyes unusually bright. My heart trembled, but it was filled with bitterness. No one had said this to me for a long time. I repeated it gently and carefully. Sue, be safe. Closing my eyes, I seemed to be back at the spring festival when I was 16. That year, there was a young man who looked up at me and said loudly to me, Sue, be safe. As the fireworks burst in the sky and reflected on his face, he was incomparably handsome. My heart was pounding, and it seemed that my heart was melted by his passionate and fearless eyes. That year was so good. One utterance was a lifetime. But, Charlie, I seem to have always forgotten to ask you. Did it hurt when the drug dealers threw you off the tall building? It really hurt me. Really. After being discharged from the hospital, perhaps feeling guilty on his own, or maybe being forced by his mother, Jasper sent me many precious gifts. Necklaces, gems, luxury items. One gift after another. He had always been generous. Otherwise, he wouldn't have attracted so many women. I'm not an otherworldly being who shuns worldly possessions. So I accepted all the gifts that came my way. I even asked my friends to estimate their values. My friend was astonished and said, Sue, are you that desperate for money? Why do you want to know how much they're worth? Do you want to sell them to get some money? Doesn't your husband give you money to spend? I just smiled and didn't refute. Maybe. This year is already the last treatment process for Charlie. After the surgery, Charlie will surely wake up. I'll give him more money to help him recover. Moreover, I always have to leave the Jasper family. This money can be regarded as compensation for the harm I suffered because of Yasmin. Anyway, Jasper doesn't care about money the least, but I do. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but laugh. At this moment, the maid suddenly knocked on the door. Madam, Miss Yasmin is here to visit. Yasmin had arrived. The next second, she rushed upstairs and blocked my way, sneering continuously. Sue, don't you know how much of a nuisance you are? Jasper doesn't love you at all. What's the point of you lingering in the Jasper family? I didn't understand Yasmin's self-righteousness. Just like I didn't understand the shamelessness of her fans. Clearly, I was Jasper's legal wife, but in their mouths, I seemed to be the villain who had seized someone else's place. Like master, like followers. That's absolutely right. But I wasn't going to indulge Yasmin. I really don't know when a mistress can be so arrogant. Yasmin was furious, but the next second, she suddenly changed her expression and laughed secretly. I'll let you know who Jasper really loves. Ah. Then, she fell down the stairs. I was stunned. The next second, a cry of shock came from downstairs. Yasmin. Jasper quickly picked Yasmin up from the ground. Yasmin was unharmed but was crying pitifully. It hurts so much, Jasper. Fortunately, you came to save me. Jasper suddenly looked at me and shouted harshly, Sue, what did you do? I looked at him silently, without saying a word. But at this moment, Yasmin propped herself up and rushed at me, with a hideous expression. You pushed me. How dare you push me? With that, she suddenly pushed me down the stairs. I was like a falling wild goose, falling backward. In the last second, I could only subconsciously reach out my hand towards Jasper, who was closest to me, Jasper, hoping that he could catch me. But he didn't. Jasper reached out and hugged Yasmin in his arms, looking at me with an extremely cold gaze. Since you pushed Yasmin, it's only normal for her to push you back. Yes. Jasper liked Yasmin. Of course he would believe her. Just like if Charlie were here, he would surely believe me. He would. He had always liked me the most and believed in me the most. In the darkness, I had a dream, dreaming about the last time I saw Charlie. He was in his police uniform, still shining brightly in the darkness. He held me in his arms. Sue, when I come back from this mission, I'll go to your house and ask your parents to marry you to me. He also said that he had a difficult mission this time. He could only succeed and not fail, otherwise, he would let down the several predecessors who had sacrificed. He also swore to me that he would definitely come back. Sue, wait for me. I waited. What I waited for was his bloodied and dying appearance. He was thrown down from the tall building by the drug dealers. After the rescue, he became a vegetative state and was in danger of losing his life at any time. Only my mother could save him. And my mother's requirement was that I marry Jasper. I agreed. In a blink of an eye, it had been 5 years. My mother didn't allow me to visit Charlie. So I didn't dare to go even once. But I thought we would meet soon. This midsummer of this year was Charlie's last surgery. My mother told me that after this surgery, Charlie would wake up. He would surely come to find me. He would smile and say to me, Sue, long time no see. Yes. Charlie, we haven't seen each other for such a long time. When we meet, I want to tell you. I really miss you. Really. Mrs. Jasper, are you awake? I rubbed my throbbing head and gave a soft yes. The nurse asked with concern, don't you feel dizzy? You fell down the stairs and almost had a concussion. Fortunately, you were sent here in time. Otherwise, it could have been worse. President Jasper is really something. You were unconscious, but he didn't even come to see you. Instead, he went to a company. Before she could finish speaking, she probably realized that she had said something wrong and suddenly stopped. But actually, I didn't care. It's okay, I comforted her, but my voice was hoarse. Where is this? The nurse let out a sigh of relief. Sioux Family Hospital. Sioux Family Hospital. Charlie was also here. All these years, I never dared to come to see him. I was afraid to see his pale face and even more afraid that my father would be angry with me for breaking my promise. But at this moment, since I was sick and hospitalized, I could go and see him openly. Just once. I really missed him. I clenched my fists, suppressing the excitement in my heart, and tried hard to pretend that I didn't care. I asked, excuse me, is there a patient named Charlie in the hospital? He's my friend. Which ward is he in? I'd like to go and see him. Charlie? The nurse thought hard before answering, yes, there is. But he passed away 2 years ago. My first reaction was that the nurse had mistaken someone. I eagerly tried to explain more. No? It's impossible. He was very young. He was the nurse continued my sentence, a police officer, right? I subconsciously nodded. That's the one. He passed away 2 years ago due to a failed surgery. Since he was an orphan, only the police could be notified to claim the body. I heard that he had already been cremated and buried. I couldn't hear the rest of what she said. Time seemed to stop, and my heartbeat seemed to stop too. The nurse opened the curtain, and the warm sunlight fell on me. But it couldn't warm my bone-deep coldness. Mrs. Jasper, do you still have a headache? Or do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Why are you crying? Crying? Why should I cry? I hadn't cried for many years. No matter how aggrieved or how much pain I felt, I could bear it. I moved my gaze to her face, wanting to smile to comfort her not to worry about me. I had been in pain for many years. I thought I had already gotten used to it. But I couldn't smile. I lowered my head slightly, my frail back bent, my eyes slightly wet, and when I opened my mouth, what came out was a hoarse murmur, full of grief and guilt. It hurts. It really hurts. Charlie was really dead. I checked the hospital records. I also saw his last photo. He was lying on the hospital bed, his face pale but still handsome. He was still wearing that police uniform, neat and meticulous. But I knew that on the inside of his police uniform, at the heart position, there was a small word embroidered, my name. I remembered that year when he had just graduated. He stood tall and proud at the graduation ceremony, wearing the newly issued police uniform, shining brighter than the sun. His face was cold and serious, but the moment he saw me, it was like the ice and snow melted, and he smiled brightly. In a secluded place, he showed me my name on his police uniform and told me, I put you on my heart. I'm reminding myself that no matter how difficult the mission is, I must try my best to survive because my Sue must be waiting for me to come back. Sue, you should also be safe and happy. I was very obedient. I cherished my life more than anyone else, but the person who always reminded me to be careful every time we met had become a cold photo. He would never come back. Letting the tears fall on the photo one by one, I tried hard to show a smile with my hoarse voice. A sweet smile. A smile like the first time we met. But my eyelashes trembled slightly, and the pain in my eyes couldn't be hidden. It was sad, lonely, and cold. I said, Charlie, long time no see. After coming back from the hospital, I started to have sleepless nights. I felt extremely empty inside. Jasper didn't come home. The maid said that he was still in the hospital accompanying Yasmin. That's good. I didn't want to see him at all. But things always didn't go as I wished. Before Jasper pushed the door open and entered, I was staring at Charlie's photo in a daze. You pushed her and hurt her. Shouldn't you apologize to her? After you apologize to her, I'll pretend this didn't happen. I won't let my mother know about this, and you won't be punished. I paused when I was putting away the photo and looked up at him. My tone was flat. So you've always known? You knew that I would be punished because of you. Did he do one absurd thing after another, just like his mother, to deliberately torture me? Jasper's face froze, and he wanted to explain, but I didn't care anymore. I just thought it was so ridiculous and childish that I had once felt for Jasper. The light was dappled. There was no expression on my face. I carefully put away the photo, then looked back at him. I'll go. Having got the answer he wanted, Jasper didn't leave. He looked at the woman in front of him and suddenly felt that although it had only been a few days since we last met, I had become extremely thin and haggard. The wrist on the table was slender and fragile, as if it would break with a little bend. After a long silence, he finally said one sentence, Sue, you should eat well. But I didn't want to bother with him anymore. I was already too tired to deal with him. Picking up the things I had prepared long ago, I silently followed him, got into the car, and came to the outside of Yasmin's ward. I pushed the door open and entered. Yasmin was pleasantly surprised. Jasper, you're here. But the moment she saw me, her expression changed instantly. You bitch. You made me break my bones and lose the leading role. Do you know how long I've been preparing for this leading role? You've ruined it all. With that, she started crying pitifully. Jasper held her in his arms, gently comforting her. The moment their eyes met, tenderness lingered between them. It seemed as if they were the real couple. I suddenly let out a laugh. The laugh was sarcastic and cynical, sounding particularly jarring in the hospital ward. Both of them were stunned for a moment and looked at me. I gave a faint smile. Yasmin, have you always been like this? She frowned as she looked at me. Always lying, shameless. She was instantly enraged. Naturally, Jasper came to her defense, scolding me harshly. Sue, what nonsense are you talking about? I never talk nonsense. I smiled faintly and motioned for them to look at Weibo. I had posted a Weibo 3 minutes ago, and on it was a section of surveillance footage. It was every moment of the day when Yasmin came to find me. It completely recorded how arrogant and threatening Yasmin was, how she directed and acted in her own little drama, and how she cried "thief" while being the real thief. Also, it showed how Yasmin instigated her fans to surround and intercept me, which led to the car accident. In just 1 minute, this Weibo post had been forwarded and commented on tens of thousands of times. No longer able to pretend to be weak, Yasmin lunged at me, baring her teeth and claws. "Sue! Are you crazy? I'll kill you." I easily dodged her, then glanced at the corner and gave a bright smile. "Yasmin, next time you want to do something bad, you'd better check if there are any surveillance cameras nearby." Yasmin reflexively looked at the corner. The camera was flashing red, dutifully recording everything. At that moment, it was as if she had been pressed the power off button. She didn't dare to make another move and could only glare at me through gritted teeth. But my gaze had already fallen on Jasper. He furrowed his brows and looked at me expressionlessly, asking, "When did you find out about these things?" I didn't answer. Instead, I let out a light chuckle and slowly asked, "Jasper, do you still remember what you said when we got married?" He looked a bit startled. I continued, "You said that you didn't love me, but you wouldn't hurt me. But you decided to let those crazy fans go just to defend Yasmin. They were practically itching to kill me." Clearly, Jasper had already investigated and found out that the reason those fans could locate me was because of Yasmin's instigation. But he still chose to defend her. The vows of marriage were shattered in the face of first love. "You broke your promise." Jasper's brows were knitted in confusion, and his tone revealed a hint of annoyance. "Sue, I just didn't want you to be at the center of public opinion and get hurt." Hurt? Letting go of those who tried to kill me was supposed to protect me. How ridiculous. I looked at the man in front of me and spoke each word clearly. "Jasper, let's get a divorce." We left on bad terms in the hospital. Jasper was non-committal about the divorce, but Yasmin was visibly delighted. She thought that once I left, she could take my place. Clearly, it was Jasper's mother who was preventing her from marrying Jasper. Unable to resist Jasper's mother, she directed all her hatred at me. How stupid. Jasper's mother sat in front of me, looking down at me from above. "Sue, I order you to delete that Weibo post immediately." I raised an eyebrow. Before I could say anything, another person suddenly burst into the house. "Sue, it was my mother." The furious look on her face froze the moment she saw Jasper's mother. She tried to force a smile, but it made her whole face look particularly hideous. Jasper's mother snorted coldly. I gave a faint smile and said slowly, "Mom, I've already posted the Weibo as you asked. I think after Jasper's reputation is damaged, my brother will surely be able to acquire that piece of land." As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions on both Jasper's mother's and my mother's faces changed. During this period, the Sue family and the Jasper family were competing for the same piece of land. In the past, the Sue family would never have dared to compete with the Jasper family, but this time, the Sue family was determined to win. However, the Jasper family was naturally unwilling to give in, and there was bound to be open and covert struggles. At this critical juncture, there was a problem within the Jasper family. With Jasper's reputation damaged, it would naturally be disadvantageous in the government's review. Then the one who would benefit would be the Sue family. Jasper's mother's face darkened, and an indescribable coldness showed in her expression. She glared at my mother through gritted teeth. My mother suddenly realized what was going on and scolded angrily, "When did I ever ask you to post on Weibo?" Yes, I remembered it wrong. I posted it on my own initiative. As I spoke, there was a faint hint of grievance in my expression. It would have been better if I hadn't explained. The more I explained, the more it seemed like I was covering something up. Jasper's mother curled the corners of her mouth slightly, but her tone was colder than ice. "So, you had such intentions. You're really quite capable." With that, she walked out without looking back. My mother quickly chased after her. Mrs. Jasper, don't listen to her nonsense. How could I dare to do such a thing? But Jasper's mother ignored her and got straight into the car. I watched her back and laughed wantonly. A moment later, my mother walked up to me, panting heavily. She suddenly smashed all the tea sets on the table and roared at me, "Sue! Are you crazy? Crazy?" Yasmin had also asked me this question. I didn't answer it at that time. But the answer was obvious. I looked at the woman in front of me without showing any weakness, a cold glint in my eyes. Yes. From the moment you lied to me, I've been crazy. You clearly knew how important Charlie was to me, but you lied to me, saying that he was alive, making me get hurt again and again for the Jasper family and for my brother. My gaze was like the tip of a knife, staring fiercely at my mother as I asked word by word, "Mom, when I was lying in the hospital bed, did you ever feel sorry for me, even once?" There was a tremor in my voice at the end. My mother took a deep breath and forced a smile. "Sue, you're my daughter. Of course I feel sorry for you. Is that so?" I gave a bitter laugh. Seeing that my expression had softened slightly, my mother spoke again. "Sue, delete the Weibo post now and then go and apologize to Mrs. Jasper." Sure enough. She was good at giving a sweet treat and then a slap. She thought I would still be like when I was a child, having expectations of her, hoping that she would love me. But the truth was, disappointment after disappointment. I sat back on the sofa, clenching my fists tightly. My tone was soft but very clear. "I will get a divorce. Mom, I think after this incident, Mrs. Jasper will take back little by little all the things you've obtained from the Jasper family by using me over the years." At this moment, my mother suddenly came to her senses. She glared at me with angry brows and said harshly, "You did it on purpose. You want to take revenge on us." "Yes. I did it on purpose." I looked up at her, a faint smile on my lips, but my eyes were cold. "Mom, after lying to me for all these years, it's not too much for me to take some interest, is it?" After that day, Mrs. Jasper withdrew all her resource investments in the Sue family group. The Sue family group was unable to react in time, and its capital chain was actually broken. Investors also avoided the Sue family like the plague due to the warning from the Jasper family. My mother called me many times. I didn't answer any of them, just like how I had once asked her for help. And she had lied to me. I had suffered terribly in the Jasper family, but the Sue family had turned a blind eye for the sake of benefits. Since that was the case, why should I save them? I watched coldly as the stocks of the Sue family group fell day by day and even seemed to be on the verge of losing its foothold in the business circle. I thought I would feel a great sense of satisfaction for getting revenge, but in fact, there was nothing. In the cemetery, I carefully wiped Charlie's photo. There was a smile on his handsome face, full of youthful spirit and dazzling brightness. Just like 6 years ago. Unlike me, who had long become haggard and terrifying. "Charlie, if you knew I had become like this, would you still like me?" I leaned against the tombstone and asked softly. The wind blew slightly cool, blowing up fallen leaves on the ground. They were light and fluttered, landing right in my palm. It was like his answer. There was always a response to everything. Even though he was already dead, it seemed as if he was still fulfilling his promise. I couldn't help but let out a laugh, but then there was an indescribable sourness. At this moment, a deep voice rang out behind me, "Are you Sue?" Looking back, I saw a middle-aged man with a handsome and refined face. He said that he was Charlie's master. He could recognize me because Charlie had boasted about my existence to him more than once. He was always like that. Loving me without reservation. Eager to tell the whole world. The man handed me a letter and a police uniform. His voice was choked with sobs as he spoke again. "These are Charlie's belongings before his death. You are the most important person to him. I think you might need these." I took them in my hands. The clothes were clearly quite light. But in my heart, they were so heavy that my hands were trembling uncontrollably. "I do need them. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this last bit of something to hold on to." I opened the letter. It was in Charlie's familiar handwriting. Neat and proper. Stroke by stroke, Sue, by the time you read this letter, I probably have already sacrificed myself for the country. But don't be sad for me. As a police officer, sacrificing myself for the country and sharing the burdens of the people are my duties and responsibilities. Even if I die, it will be a worthy death. Sue, I know that after I die, I will surely be buried in the Martyrs' Cemetery. I know it's an honor, but I don't want to be alone there. If possible, send me back to my hometown. It's been many years. I've almost forgotten what my hometown looks like. Also, I know that you will surely be sad. After all, I know that you really like me. I also like you. Very much. More than anyone else in this world. But Sue, there are always some things in this world that are more important than love. Sue, take big steps forward. Don't stop because of me. Love is a driving force, not a burden that holds you back. I don't want to be a burden on you either. Finally, I love you, Sue. For the 10,001st time, I wish my Sue peace and happiness year after year. Charlie, who loves you forever. There were a few speckles on the paper. I think that crybaby Charlie must have secretly wiped away his tears when writing this letter. I guess he was also thinking about things after his death. Otherwise, how could he have written it so well? When he was at school, his compositions were really bad. Charlie. What a fool. He's already dead. Yet he still wants to take care of me. But I've been a good girl. I've always been obedient. You don't want me to be sad for you all the time. I'll try. I'll try to live each day of my life well. From now on, I'm just Sue. No longer a pawn of the Sue family. Charlie, I'll love you forever and ever too. Sue will love Charlie forever and ever. I always have to fulfill Charlie's wishes. It takes a lot of time to transfer from the Martyrs' Cemetery. Thanks to the help of his master, otherwise, the process would have been even more difficult. In half a month, I carried Charlie's ashes and returned to the Jasper family. Before sending Charlie home, I still had one last thing to do. The lawyer told me that Jasper refused to sign the divorce agreement. Even though the Sue family and the Jasper family have completely fallen out now. I heard from my friends that Jasper has been secretly helping the Sue family. Look at him. He never understood me. Yet he refuses to let me go. When I got home, it was already late. Jasper wasn't at home. That's good. I didn't want to see him either. But things didn't go as I wished. Just as I had finished packing all my things, there was a noise at the door, and then a startled voice rang out, "Sue, you're back." Looking back, it was Jasper. There were a few traces of red on his face, and his eyes looked dazed. He must have drunk a lot. My friend told me that since I left, Jasper first searched for me all over the world. When he found no news about me, he started drinking heavily every day. Yasmin even went to the bar to look for him at first, but Jasper ignored her completely. Yasmin felt humiliated and never went to look for him again. In the past, Jasper would surely have coaxed Yasmin, but this time, it was as if Jasper had forgotten about Yasmin. He didn't go to look for her even once. Maybe he realizes how good you are now. When you come back, he surely won't dare to look for Yasmin again and will live a good life with you. But I shook my head and said softly, but I don't want to live with him anymore. These 4 years. I've had enough. Jasper and I should never have been together in the first place. Sitting in the living room, Jasper and I were sitting face to face. The atmosphere was silent. I placed the divorce agreement in front of him and said, "This is the divorce agreement. Sue, stop making a fuss, okay? I'm so tired." Jasper furrowed his brow slightly, looking a bit aggrieved. "Sue, my stomach hurts a little. Can you make me the soup you used to make?" When he talked to me, there was a hint of an order in his tone. Never before had he spoken in such a careful, even somewhat flattering way. But I didn't care. All I wanted was the result I desired. "Jasper, I'm here to divorce you." Jasper took a deep breath and clenched his fists. "Why? Haven't we been living well all these years? Why do we have to get divorced? I know you suffered a lot of grievances because of Yasmin. I'll make it up to you in the future, okay?" I frowned, a bit confused. "After the divorce, you can be with Yasmin. Isn't that good?" "No. He actually denied it without hesitation, looking at me with a strange glint in his eyes. Sue, I only want to be with you. I used to think I didn't like you, but these days, when you weren't at home, every time I came home, the house was empty. There was no one to leave the light on for me anymore. Every time I passed by the cake shop you like, I would subconsciously go in to buy you cookies, but when I got back, I found that you weren't at home. I actually felt scared. I felt that the house was so empty. This house can't do without you, and neither can I. Sue, can we live a good life together in the future? I won't contact Yasmin anymore. His tone, expression, and manner when he spoke were all very sincere. I had been with him for 4 years, and I thought I knew him a little. So I knew that what he was saying and confessing at this moment were all true. But so what? It doesn't matter to me anymore. But I still couldn't help but sigh that a man's love can change so quickly. Just a few months ago, he had trampled on my dignity and respect in front of the media reporters for the sake of Yasmin, allowing me to be ridiculed and even facing life-threatening situations. But now, he says that the person he truly loves is me. How ridiculous. I looked at the man in front of me and couldn't help but let out a laugh, saying slowly, Jasper, you don't like me. You're just used to my existence. Just like you could never forget Yasmin. Even though you know she's willful and spoiled, and always lies, but because you didn't get her, she's the red mark on your heart. If I hadn't fought back before and had always been by your side, never leaving or forsaking you, then you would never have thought that the person you liked was me. The red mark on your heart will become a mosquito bloodstain once you get it, and the white rice grain will become the first love once you lose it. The red mark on the heart, the first love. The one you can't get is always ing. Many people say that there are 2 women in a man's life. But in the end, it's all because the person you love has always been yourself. Because you love yourself, you never consider other people's feelings. You love when you want to, and as for marriage, family, and parents, they don't matter. I'm already tired of it. I stood up, looking down at Jasper, and then turned to look out of the window. There was a tree in the yard. In the past, it was always withered and yellow. I always thought it wouldn't survive the next midsummer. But now, when I look at it again, I find that there are a few new buds on the branches. A tender green. I think that before long, it will sprout, grow against the wind, and become thick branches. Just like me. I'm also going to break free from the mire and be reborn. I'm leaving. I let out a laugh, with a bit of genuine joy on my brows. I never want to come back again. Picking up my luggage and holding my beloved, I strode out. I pushed the door open. The sunlight was shining all over the ground. I reached out to touch it, and a trace of warmth stained my fingertips. Looking at the sky in the distance, the clouds in the high sky were layered upon each other, finally forming a brilliant smiling face. Looking down, my beloved was by my side. I smiled and said in a low voice, Charlie, we're going home. A gentle breeze blew. A green leaf landed on my palm. Listening carefully, it was Charlie's reply. He said, Sue, let's go home together. Sue Sway, school is over. A voice came to my ears. It was very familiar, but I couldn't remember where I had heard it for a moment. Opening my eyes, I was just looking at a face full of youthful spirit. Very handsome. When the boy saw that I woke up, he let out a sigh of relief. His tone was both helpless and amused. Sue Sway, you've been sleeping for the whole afternoon. If you don't wake up soon, everyone will be gone. My head was still a bit painful. I always felt as if I had overlooked something, but I just couldn't remember. Looking up and around, it was indeed the familiar school environment. I felt relieved. Moreover, the person in front of me was Charlie. The person I liked. I subconsciously smiled at him and said in a coquettish tone, I'm a bit dizzy, Charlie. I'll take you home. He smiled and skillfully took my school bag, slung it over his shoulder, and held my hand with one hand, walking side by side on the way home. It was a road we had walked many, many times, but this time I felt especially happy. I kept talking to Charlie. But after a while, I felt extremely sleepy. Charlie, will you carry me? Although I was asking, I had already stopped walking and was standing on the high steps, looking quietly at Charlie. He would surely agree. Charlie let out a helpless laugh and bent his straight back like a pine tree in front of me. Come on, little ancestor. I smiled even more and leaned on his not so wide but safe enough back. He walked steadily. There was no bump on the way. I was even sleepier. But Charlie didn't let me sleep peacefully. He called my name. Sue, don't sleep. Let's have a chat. I tried to open my eyes and nodded. He said, today, Jasper and Yasmin had another fight. He even swore in the class that he would never talk to Yasmin again. But as soon as the class was over, he went to find her. He's really hopeless. With that, he laughed. He said, today, Jasper and Yasmin had another fight. He even swore in the class that he would never talk to Yasmin again. But as soon as the class was over, he went to find her. Then how do you know? Because he asked me for advice on how to please a girl. I told him that Sue is very obedient and likes me very much. He was almost dying of jealousy. I asked him, does he know me? No, but he knows that I like you. Everyone knows. Jasper. Those 3 words flashed through my mind. I seemed to feel both familiar and strange about them. But he shouldn't be a stranger. But before I could figure it out, my head hurt badly. I didn't dare to think about it anymore and just said softly, Charlie, let's not talk about him anymore, okay? Okay. Charlie thought for a moment and then asked, Sue, what do you want to do in the future? I gave a faint smile. I want to be a painter so that I can paint you. I'll paint a picture for you on every birthday and hang it in the room. Charlie was stunned for a moment and then burst out laughing. But his arms holding me were steady. My face felt a bit hot from his laughter, so I asked him, what about you? He didn't hesitate. I want to be a police officer to protect our country and fight against evil. Police officer. Yes. Charlie's dream had always been to be a police officer. Before, I thought being a police officer was good, but at this moment, I suddenly felt extremely panicked. In a daze, I seemed to see a person covered in blood. Covered with a white cloth. Who was it? I tried desperately to see the face of the person under the white cloth. Beautiful eyes, cold and serious face, covered with wounds. It was Charlie. But how could Charlie be covered in blood? At this moment, I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cave, freezing terribly. I tightly clutched Charlie's neck. But then I found that his skin was cold to the touch, not like a living person. I was so scared that I struggled to get down and ran in front of him, staring at him unblinkingly. Charlie was startled and quickly held my hand, soothing me. Sue, what's wrong? Charlie, I opened my mouth, wanting to ask, but didn't know where to start. Charlie's expression became a bit gloomy. When he spoke again, his voice was hoarse beyond recognition. Sue, that was me. Impossible. I refuted loudly, but tears uncontrollably rolled down my cheeks. I held his hand tightly, trying to warm his cold body temperature. But it was all in vain. Charlie let out a sigh and hugged me into his arms. Looking down at me, his gaze was still gentle. Sue, I'm really sorry that I can't marry you. But you have to live well. I'll turn into the wind, into the clouds, and stay by your side. Don't be afraid. Sue, take big steps forward. Sue, may you be safe year after year. He called my name again and again. I didn't want to leave him. No matter what he became, I didn't want to go. But a ray of light pierced through the darkness, separating the light from the dark. The dream was over. I was sitting on the train going home. It rumbled along, and there was no one by my side. For the rest of my life, no one would wish me well anymore.